I should have never walked through that door. Those words slammed into me before I even laid eyes on them. 3 months. 3 long, endless months deployed in a desert I'd stopped recognizing as a place. Surrounded by heat, dust, and danger. Every day, every hour, every second, I'd counted down until I could come home. I had imagined this moment so many times. Stepping into my apartment, feeling the comfort of my own space, smelling the coffee brewing, seeing him waiting for me with that half smile I had always loved. But the reality hit me first, in the senses. The lights, too many of them, glowing warm and inviting, spilling through the blinds in a way that should have felt welcoming, but didn't. The faint hum of laughter, soft, intimate, and too familiar, a perfume I didn't recognize. My chest tightened, a low, uneasy thrum of dread that made every instinct scream at me that something was wrong. I parked the car and sat for a moment, gripping the wheel, my heart hammering. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he had a friend over. Maybe it was a repairman. But every fiber of me knew, my gut honed by years of missions where being wrong could cost lives, didn't lie. The hallway to our door seemed to stretch forever. Every tap of my boots echoed against the floor, and I forced myself to breathe, slow and steady, though my pulse raced like a siren in my chest. The faint murmur of voices grew louder. Familiar warmth, comfort, except it wasn't mine. I opened the door, and the world tilted. Her hand rested on his arm. His head leaned toward hers, whispering something I didn't hear but felt. She laughed softly, a sound that should have been harmless, but in that context, in my context, it cut through me like a blade. I could see it all, the closeness, the comfort, the intimacy he had reserved for her while I had been gone, counting the days until I came home. And then, his eyes met mine, wide, panicked, guilt flashing for a fraction of a second, before it vanished behind something else. Fear, maybe, or shock. Emily, it's not what you think, he stammered, voice tight, shaky, his words scrambled, clumsy, pleading. I didn't move, I didn't speak. My legs felt like lead, my chest constricted, my eyes traced the scene, noting every detail, the half-empty wineglass on the coffee table, her coat draped casually over his chair, the photos on the wall now looking like lies. My mind raced, replaying every text I had sent, every message he had read and ignored, every promise made in moments of quiet intimacy. And here it all was, laid bare. I didn't mean, he tried again, stepping forward, hands raised. You have to understand, we didn't. I cut him off with a cold, measured whisper. It's not understanding I want. It's truth, and you've already shown me what the truth is. He froze, shame and panic wrestling on his face. Emily, please. It's not what it looks like. I was lonely. I was scared. Scared. Lonely. Those words hit me like nails. Every sacrifice I had made, every mission, every sleepless night, every brush with death, seemed heavier now. I swallowed the lump in my throat and let my gaze scan him, scanning her, scanning this betrayal, this life I thought we shared, that had been quietly dismantled while I fought for every inch of survival miles away. I noticed the smallest things, the way her hand lingered on his arm, how she leaned in when he whispered, the tiny smirk when he said something under his breath. My chest tightened further. Each detail was a nail in the coffin of trust I had carried for him. Emily. Wait. Please, he called out, desperation cracking his voice. Don't do this now. I can fix it. I swear. Just let me explain. I took a slow, deliberate step back, then another. Boots echoing against the hardwood. My uniform felt impossibly heavy, every metal, every patch pressing into my chest, proof of every mission, every risk, every honor earned, now juxtaposed against this shattering reality. I didn't yell, I didn't plead, I didn't cry, not yet. I simply walked past them, past their whispers and excuses, past the life they had stolen while I was away. Every step was controlled, precise. Each echo a statement. I will not crumble, Emily. Please. It wasn't. He tried again, voice rising, breaking. I never meant for this to happen. But I didn't hear him anymore. The apartment faded behind me. The laughter, the comfort, the betrayal. It all stayed there. Outside, the evening air hit me like a shockwave, sharp and cool, carrying the scent of rain-soaked asphalt, and the faint promise of clarity, pain, anger, betrayal, yes, but underneath it all resolve. I was still standing, stronger, sharper, and ready for what would come next. You can't break me, I whispered to the wind. Not now, not ever. The door clicked behind me. And for a moment, silence became deafening. The city outside hummed like it hadn't changed, indifferent to the devastation in my chest. I leaned against the car, uniform damp with sweat, hands gripping the steering wheel like it could anchor me to reality. My breath came in slow, deliberate pulls. 1, 2, 3. But my heart refused to listen. I kept seeing his face, the way panic had danced across his eyes, the half-pleading, half-panicked look that screamed, I didn't expect this to happen, and her hand, resting lightly on him like she belonged there. My mind kept replaying it, over and over, like a recording I couldn't pause or mute. I started the car without thinking, hands trembling slightly, tires crunching over wet asphalt. The streets blurred past me. Neon signs, traffic lights, the dull glow of late evening. But my thoughts were sharper than anything I'd ever experienced in a hostile zone. Betrayal. The kind that doesn't shoot at you, doesn't chase you through explosions, but cuts deeper than any bullet. I drove aimlessly, letting the night swallow me. The city's lights reflected off the windshield, distorted, like shards of a broken light. Each passing street lamp cast fleeting shadows that reminded me of moments we had shared. Dinner in that small apartment kitchen, his hand brushing mine on the sofa, laughter that had sounded real, and now, all gone, replaced by lies, whispers and betrayal. I pulled into a quiet park, the kind where no one comes after dark. I stepped out, boots crunching gravel, uniform still pressed and neat, helmet of duty hanging like a weight I didn't need anymore. I sat on the edge of a fountain, the cold stone biting through the fabric of my fatigue. Rain had started to fall lightly, sprinkling my shoulders, wetting my hair, and somehow, it made me feel alive, present, grounded. I reached for my phone. My fingers hovered over his number, trembling. Call him, text him, tell him how I really felt. The words rose like fire in my chest, but dissolved before I could speak them. Instead, I typed a single note to myself, hands shaking. I deserve better. I deserve honesty. I deserve loyalty. I put the phone down. Staring at the ripples in the fountain, I realized that the first step wasn't confrontation, it was clarity. I had to understand why this happened, not just for him or her, but for me. For the first time in months, I thought about myself, not missions, deployments, or duties. And that's when it hit me. I didn't have to wait for him to face the consequences. I could create them. I could take control. I didn't have to cry, scream, or beg for closure. I could let him feel the weight of what he did in a way he hadn't even imagined. I stayed there for an hour, just sitting, letting the rain soak through my jacket, letting the city breathe around me. Each drop on my uniform felt like a small baptism, washing away doubt, fear, and hesitation. I started to plan, not revenge in a vengeful sense, but accountability. He needed to see that actions have consequences, that betrayal leaves scars, visible and invisible, and that I was no longer someone to be trifled with. The night deepened, street lights flickered, the hum of distant traffic became a rhythm that matched the steadying of my pulse. I remembered the words I had whispered as I left the apartment. You can't break me. Not now. Not ever. And for the first time since opening that door, I believed it. Somewhere, across the city, he was pacing, frantic, replaying every moment, every glance, every step he had taken that led to this inevitable fracture. He didn't understand yet that leaving me standing was not a choice anymore. He had put himself in a corner, and it was only a matter of time before the consequences found him. I finally rose from the fountain, boots wet, jacket clinging to me, eyes clear and determined. The rain had slowed to a mist. The night smelled like wet asphalt and possibility. My phone buzzed with notifications I ignored. Calls from friends, family. They could wait. This was mine to deal with. I walked back to the car, each step purposeful, grounded. The betrayal had tried to break me, but it had only sharpened my resolve. And as I started the engine and drove into the heart of the city, I whispered to myself again, louder this time, he will face what he's done, and I will be ready. I parked a few blocks away from the apartment, letting the engine idle while I stared at the rain-slicked streets. The glow from the streetlights shimmered in puddles, distorted reflections bouncing as if mocking me. My hands rested lightly on the steering wheel, but my pulse thumped like a warning drum. I wasn't just going back inside to talk. I was going back to confront, to hold him accountable. Every step toward the door felt heavier than the last, boots crunching against the wet asphalt. I rehearsed what I would say, though I knew rehearsals couldn't capture the storm of anger, hurt, and disbelief bubbling beneath my skin. My uniform was still pressed, helmet tucked under my arm, a symbol of order and discipline, a shield for the chaos I felt inside. The hallway smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet. The moment I stepped inside, the apartment seemed smaller than I remembered. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the soft hum of the heater felt like a ticking clock counting down the seconds until everything changed. And there he was, sitting on the couch, face pale, eyes wide, the same look I had seen before but magnified by panic. She wasn't there. Just him. Just the wreckage of what he thought would stay hidden. He rose, hands trembling slightly, like he was trying to bridge the chasm he had created. Stop. My voice was calm, deliberate, cold enough to make him pause mid-step. Don't. Just stop. He froze, swallowed, then spoke again, words tumbling faster than they could form into sense. It's not what you think. I didn't. I shook my head. It is what I think. I saw everything. I saw your hand in hers. I saw your lies. I saw every moment you thought I wouldn't come home early. And you were wrong. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now, desperate. You have to understand. I was lonely. 3 months felt endless. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never thought you'd actually come back early. I took a step forward, boots echoing on the hardwood floor, eyes locked on his. Lonely. You call betrayal lonely. You call lying, pretending she was nothing, pretending I was nothing. Lonely. Do you hear yourself? He flinched, the weight of my words hitting him like a physical blow. I made a mistake. I can fix it. Please, just let me. No, I interrupted, voice rising, controlled but sharp. There's nothing to fix. Not with words. Not with excuses. You had every chance to stay faithful, to honor the promises you made, and you failed. I came home early, and you were ready to erase me from your life. He fell silent, guilt finally washing over his panic. His eyes darted to the floor, to the walls, to the remnants of our life together. Photos that now felt like a lie, the wine glass still on the counter. I wasn't thinking. You weren't thinking? My hands clenched into fists, while I was counting down every day, every hour, every minute until I came back. You were not thinking? Not thinking of me, of us, of everything we built. His shoulders slumped, the fight finally leaving him. He tried to reach for my hand, for forgiveness, for some chance of redemption. Please, I can make it right. I swear. You can't. The words were final, firm, like the last note in a symphony of heartbreak. You've already written the end of this story. Your actions spoke louder than any apology ever could. You will face the consequences of what you've done, and it won't be me picking them. But trust me, they're coming. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. I could feel the weight of it pressing into the air, see it etched on his face, see the realization dawn, that he had underestimated me, that he had thought betrayal was a small thing, that I would just let him off the hook. I turned, every step measured, deliberate, boots clicking like a metronome counting out the beat of justice. Remember this moment. I whispered over my shoulder as I reached the door. Remember how it felt to be caught. Remember how it felt when someone you thought was powerless decided they weren't. That's your consequence, living with this. Knowing that you lost me, knowing that you'll never have the privilege of trust again. The door clicked behind me. The sound was small but monumental. My chest ached, my hands shook, but my mind was clear. I had reclaimed my dignity. I had faced the betrayal head on, and now, the rest was up to the universe, or karma, or whatever force ensured justice. I didn't look back. The hallway was empty, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the city outside was quiet. For the first time since deployment, I felt the burden of anger begin to lift. The storm had passed, but the echoes of his guilt would remain, long after my footsteps faded into the night. The rain had stopped by the time I reached my apartment, but the streets still glistened under the city lights, reflections rippling like fragile memories. I didn't immediately step inside. I leaned against my car, letting the cold air wash over me, trying to shake the storm that had followed me from that apartment. The storm of betrayal, anger, and a heartbreak I never expected to carry home with me. I replayed the confrontation over and over in my mind. His words, his pleading, his excuses, they were hollow now. Echoes of someone I thought I knew but never really had. I could almost see him sitting there, head hung, the weight of his guilt pressing down like a physical force. And yet, no matter how much he begged, no matter how much he tried to explain, the truth had been laid bare. Trust, once broken, cannot simply be repaired with words. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee, a familiar scent that once felt comforting. Now it was tainted, a reminder of moments that had once been ours, now forever marred by his actions. I sank into the couch, still in my uniform, helmet by my side, staring at the floor. The room felt empty, hollowed out, like it had absorbed the tension and betrayal, holding it in its walls. A notification on my phone pulled me back, messages from friends, concerned voices, asking if I was okay, if I'd eaten, if I needed someone to talk to. I didn't reply immediately. I needed silence first. I needed to process. I needed to let the anger settle into clarity. And then it came. A flood of memories, small moments I had once cherished with him. The late-night talks, the laughter in the kitchen, the way he used to brush the hair from my face. Each memory twisted sharply, turning warm moments into knives of irony. How had I been so blind? How had I trusted someone so capable of deception? Hours passed. The city hummed outside, indifferent to my turmoil. And then, my phone rang. It was him. I didn't answer. I let it ring, once, twice before the voicemail clicked on. Please, just hear me out. I know I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you. I can fix this. I shut the phone, my fingers trembling slightly. Fix it? How could he fix a broken heart, a shattered trust, a betrayal witnessed firsthand? The weight of his actions pressed down on me. But I also felt a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't owe him anything. He had lost the right to my time, my love, my energy. The next morning, the messages came from mutual friends, subtle inquiries, veiled accusations. I realized he had already begun spinning his story, painting himself as the victim. But I knew the truth. I had seen it, lived it, felt it in every cell of my body, and the world would eventually see it too. People who matter, people who understand trust and loyalty, would know who he really was. Days later, I learned that consequences were already catching up to him. Mutual friends began distancing themselves, his reputation fraying in quiet, unnoticed ways at first. Then, more open, stories of his lies and infidelity traveled faster than he anticipated, whispered warnings, and pointed glances following him wherever he went. He had underestimated the weight of what he had done, underestimated the ripple effect of betrayal. Meanwhile, I began reclaiming my life. I spent hours at the gym, in the air, in my training simulations, anything that grounded me, anything that reminded me of my strength. I reconnected with colleagues who respected me, friends who reminded me who I truly was beyond the lies and heartbreak. And at night, when the quiet threatened to pull me back into the memory of him, I wrote, pages upon pages, pouring out the pain, the anger, the liberation. I wrote until my hands ached and my mind cleared. One evening, As I walked past the old apartment, I saw his shadow through the window, pacing, restless, haunted, and I felt nothing but clarity. He was finally facing the reality he had created, the consequences of his choices. He would carry them alone, just as I had carried the betrayal. And for the first time, I smiled, not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to gloat, but because I was free, free from him, free from lies, free to rebuild the life that he had tried to taint. I paused, looked at the skyline beyond the city lights and whispered to myself, some people don't get second chances, some people only get the truth. The air was crisp, the city alive around me, and I felt an unfamiliar, exhilarating sense of control. I had survived the storm, and now, the sky was mine to navigate, alone, yes, but stronger, wiser, and unbroken. And as I walked away, boots clicking against the pavement, I knew, justice doesn't always arrive in the form we expect. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in the inevitability of consequences, in the clarity of survival, in the strength of walking away while others remain trapped by their own mistakes. The morning sunlight spilled into my apartment, catching dust motes in the air and illuminating the empty spaces that had once held tension, lies, and broken promises. I brewed coffee slowly, savoring the warmth that seeped into my hands, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the weight of betrayal pressing on my chest. I scrolled through my phone, carefully avoiding his messages, knowing they were desperate attempts to bend the narrative in his favor. But the truth doesn't need spinning. His attempts to manipulate had failed. Word had spread among our circle, colleagues, friends, even casual acquaintances, about what had really happened. People were starting to see him for who he was. I slipped into my flight suit, crisp, perfectly pressed, patches shining faintly in the morning light. My helmet rested on the counter, waiting. Today wasn't about revenge. Today was about reclaiming control. Today I would fly. At the airfield, I climbed into the cockpit. The familiar smell of the leather harness, the hum of the jet's systems, grounding me. Each button, each gauge, each dial was a reminder. I had survived, I had endured, and I was ready to soar above the path. The runway stretched out, glinting in the sun. I pushed the throttle forward, and the roar of the engines filled my ears, drowning out every lingering doubt or memory of him. The wind tugged at my hair, the sky opening like a promise. As the jet lifted off, the city shrank below me, and I felt the literal and figurative distance between me and the betrayal that had once consumed me. Hours later, after completing a series of precision maneuvers, practicing emergency protocols, and flying high above the clouds, I landed, calm and collected. My colleagues greeted me with nods and smiles, not knowing the storm I had survived alone, but I didn't need their validation. The satisfaction of knowing I had faced my personal turbulence and come out stronger was enough. That evening, a letter arrived, left at my apartment by a mutual friend. I opened it carefully. Inside was a simple note, not from him, but about him. He's been confronted by everyone who matters. The lies, the cheating, the excuses, all exposed. He's paying the consequences, quietly, and without the ability to manipulate. He's alone now, just as he made you feel. I allowed myself a small, genuine smile. Justice had arrived, not through confrontation, not through drama, but through the natural course of truth and consequences. Later I walked along the pier, the breeze cool on my face, the water shimmering like liquid silver under the evening sun. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel sorrow, at least not the suffocating kind. I felt clarity. I felt freedom. I reflected on everything I had learned. Loyalty is rare, trust is precious, and betrayal is a burden only the guilty carry long term. He had chosen to betray, I had chosen to rise, and rising felt better than any revenge could. I looked up at the sky, stretching endlessly, full of possibility. Tomorrow, I would fly again, missions both real and symbolic, navigating skies and life with the same steady hand. I would embrace every challenge, every storm, and every unknown, because I was no longer defined by his betrayal, but by my resilience, my strength, and my capacity to move forward. The city lights reflected on the water, the wind tugging gently at my flight jacket, and I whispered to myself, some betrayals leave scars, but they also carve paths to freedom. I'm done looking back. My life, my choices, my skies, mine, entirely. And with that, I walked away, confident, dignified and unbroken, a woman who had faced heartbreak, watched the guilty pay their dues, and emerged stronger than ever.